Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection, where I go through all the Criterion DVDs that I own. Not the ones that I've seen. I've seen a lot of titles, but these are the ones that I actually physically own. And moving on, we go into Spine 35, Diabolique, directed by Henri-Georges Clouzot, 1955. And I don't know why it's called Diabolique in America. It's because the actual title is Les Diaboliques, or the Devils, or the Fiends. And it's actually a lot better considering what, if you've seen it and you know how the whole thing works, it's actually much better. But staying true to the spirit of the film, there actually is an anti-spoiler warning at the end, probably the earliest instance of something like this happening. And I'm going to stay true to the spirit of the film and not talk too much about it. So this is definitely a safe review if you haven't seen it before. I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything. Call that an incentive for you to go see it if you haven't. It is a classic of not only in the thriller area but also in the horror, because this plot summary does not contain any spoilers, and this is in fact the most common plot summary that you will see, apart from any comments that are made that do contain spoilers. But this is the one that you see. It takes place in this school that's owned by this that's actually owned by this woman who has inherited some wealth, Christina, played by Vera Clouzot. Yes, the wife of Henri-Georges. But her husband is Michel, has this very open, like everybody in the school knows that this affair is going on, with Nicole, played by Simone Sigeret. Michel is played by Paula Maurice. And it's clear that there's kind of a breaking point for both women. They can't stand the man. The guy is a total jerk ass. He's very stingy in his operations, giving them, fish on sale. There is some slight motivation to it, but he just comes off as a cheap ass. And the two women get together, and they concoct this plan to kill him. And so they do, and it seems to turn out really well. And it ends up, they lure him to this house in another part of France, and drug him and end up drowning him in the bathtub. And then they take his body back down to the school. They dump him off to the pool, and they think, okay, that's all done. Then the body is not found, and then all kinds of weird things happen to them. So I'll leave it at that. And like I said, if you find a plot summary of this, that's typically where it stops. It's the body is missing from the pool, and a lot of strange things happen. So this is a combination of thriller and horror, and it's really good examples of both. Given that I can't talk too much, I mean, there's not. I will say that this is one of those films where, if you want to see a well-crafted storyline, the film itself is based on a novel by the famed mystery writing pair Below and Narciac, and I'm probably botching the names. Please forgive me on this, but in fact, this was the novel they think that really made a name for themselves. They've been involved in a lot of other projects, including a lot of other film projects. I'll be mentioning them again, and hopefully I'll get their names right by this point. But There is but it's based on that. It's a very, but it's so already the source is very well constructed, and the film is just as well constructed, if not possibly better. Well, actually, I'll say that the film is well constructed too. And this is a film where there is definitely repeat value. When you see it through once, you're along for the ride. You're just wondering, okay, what's going to happen? What's happening here? What's going on? But then when you finally know what did happen, and then you go back at it again, it's interesting to reevaluate everything. There are these little setups. I will say that there are these little foreshadowings that do make sense after you see it. When you see it, it's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. Not the Fry look, but just like, okay, I get it now. And that is a testament to how well it was directed. And Clouzot is a fine director. Much has been said about the comparison between him and Alfred Hitchcock, and particularly with this film, Clouzot won the rights to do the film allegedly mere hours before Hitchcock was able to obtain it. And given this was 55, I don't think Vertigo. I think Vertigo was on the verge of being made. So, you know. Oh well, he's gone off to do other films. Oh well, he didn't do this particular story. But yes, a lot has been said, and the comparisons are apt. I believe Clouzot is a director that likes to storyboard his films and work out everything in advance, very much like Hitch. You know, this is mystery, this is horror. And when you see this film, there are some, and if you've also seen Psycho, there are some interesting similarities. There's of course the anti-spoiler warnings given when it was first released. There are things that happen in the bathroom to the point where there's a famous story, anecdote, joke where this woman was someone was complaining to called up or spoke with Hitch, saying that after they've seen Les Diaboliques, she couldn't take a bath, and then after seeing Psycho, she couldn't take a shower. So like, how am I going to get myself clean? And to which he answered, try the dry cleaners. So there you go. So basically, you know, Psycho doesn't make you want to take a shower. Diaboliques, Les Diaboliques doesn't make you want to take a bath. And there's a few other little similarities, but this is another opportunity to talk about the difference between similarities and homages to outright ripping off. This is another case where this is not a rip-off. Hitch is, or to say in this case, that Hitch is not a hack to Clouzot. That he's just basically taking things. It's like, oh, this would be nice, because, well, for starters, the two films use different source material, and the other is these are two directors that know what they want. When they found something that's worth making, they know what they want, and they work through it. They actually go through the process of figuring out, okay, what needs to happen, what needs to be there, who needs to be cast, and so forth, and how everything all works. So clearly there was thought and care and craftsmanship put in there, and that is one of the things that I would make the distinction between someone who is clearly influenced by a film and does something that's similar to a previous film, to someone who's just saying, hey, that looks cool, and then just incorporates it in with really no rhyme or reason for it. You don't feel like it's part of a... You don't feel that it's integrated well into the whole of the piece. You just feel like it's just, okay, they're just doing that because that was used in this film and it was popular, and they thought, okay, if we use this, then this will make it popular. It's a whole part whole fallacy at play. You think that, oh, that's the element that I mean, and it's something that you do notice in commercial films or films that are made by major studios. It's taking advantage of whatever is popular, whatever little detail is popular at the moment, or when people talk a lot about something like for instance, take the Blair Witch Project, which is arguably what started the whole found footage using VHS cameras or home movie cameras as a basis for a film. And it's the kind of thing where people see that and they go, oh, well, we should also do found footage. And there have been some found footage films that are pretty good, and then there's other ones that are just outright terrible. But it was all because of the popularity of that film, and people thought, okay, this is what will make a film popular. And I'm sure I've used this phrase before. It's about button pushing. It just feels like you're just pushing with people's emotions. Whereas where if you see a well-crafted film, and Les Diaboliques is an example of this, you really feel like everything is working together, and it's pulling you along on this particular journey, this particular storyline. I guess something else I can mention here. I've talked a lot about characters, and I think as I've been doing this. This is getting into personal stuff now. I've been doing this little personal cinematic odyssey for at least 10 years. Ever since I went to William and Mary, and yes, Netflix was a big part of this. I felt like my whole cinematic palette just expanded greatly, and it was more or less sizable going into it. I mean, it wasn't like I was a complete novice. But I mean, I was aware. I was aware that there were other films besides what was coming out that particular year. I was fully aware of Sundance coming before I went to William and Mary, and I was even aware of some foreign films as well. So going into it, I was used to letterbox presentations. I was used to widescreen presentations. I was used to subtitles. I was used to black and white. All the things that you commonly hear that, oh, I don't like this because it's that. I had seen it and done it. But when I went into college, when I went to college, I felt like this was the opportunity to really expand my horizons and to really see the full breadth of cinema as much as one can. And this is where I first saw the French Nouvelle Vague, Truffaut, Godard, and so on. This is where I got into Tarkovsky. In fact, someone suggested I get into Tarkovsky in high school. So it was a name that I kept in mind. And then, sure enough, Solaris was released on DVD, and I got that, and this was part of it. And of course, the Criterion Collection was a part of this journey as well. So, anyway, the point of all of this is that in seeing a lot of these films, and I try to see as many different kinds of films as possible. I try to go into different genres, different styles, certainly different directors, different countries, different eras, all that. Just try to get a sense of what is out there, what is possible, what are people talking about. And I found myself liking more and more characters. I noticed more about characters. And when you get to that point, you start to become a little bit more suspicious, or not suspicious, but you become more wary of films that are built on a straight storyline. And what I mean by that is that when, I mean, you take a story and you know that it starts at point A, it goes to point B, and then it ends up on point C. And you just feel like you're going along in this maze, and that everything is there everything is there for the plot. And whatever characters are there, they're there to service the plot. So a principal character is there to make sure that the main storyline is executed, and any additional characters are there to support that journey. So these are characters as plot devices, and the tendency, because the plot is emphasized, the characters are not as emphasized, and they come off as one-dimensional, and maybe two. And and I'm not asking for like all films to do this. I understand that some films work better if it isn't that, and it's just and it's entertaining enough, and it's visceral enough and exciting enough that you don't notice this. But this is something that I do notice, and this is a really good example of, and there's lots of really good examples of this, of where there is a deliberately constructed storyline, and the characters are there to service that storyline, but there is a little bit of depth to it. There's a little bit of depth to their characters. It's not just single one-note affairs. I mean, it's not full-fledged. You don't get the sense of any kind of complexity to them, you know, in comparison to like a straight character study, or a film that's devoted exclusively to a character and not dependent on a particular storyline, or the storyline is dictated by the character. But you do get the sense that they are real people. I came up with this little litmus test as far as like the realism of a character, and I don't know what to call it. You know, maybe you all can come up with a title for it. But basically, the litmus test is you take your character, whatever you have a character written down, and imagine them on the bus, subway, some kind of public thing, whether it be like a food court or a station or, again, subway or bus. Can you see them sitting down with you or in that vicinity? Can you see them there and still be themselves? What that all means is that, can you take them outside of their storyline, of their universe, and you put them into a situation, you put them into a different situation from their origin, and particularly in a place where you see lots of people just interacting. Can they be themselves and still feel like that they're real people? And if they are, then you have a fairly realistic character. If you don't, and I would say that this could even be true with sci-fi fantasy, which is all about completely different universes. I mean, take Star Wars. You can do this with Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia. Chewbacca would just be kind of weird, and the droids would be kind of weird. But at the very least, you can do that. You could feel like that they're real enough people. And Obi-Wan Kenobi too. Original trilogy, not prequels. And actually, that's the point, is that if you look at the original Star Wars trilogy, you can do that with those characters. You can't really do that with the prequels as much. That's the reason why I came up with this litmus test. So, enough about that. Les Diaboliques is an example of what you could call mild characterization, where you do get the sense that these people are, yes, they fulfill their role in the storyline, but there's a little bit more to it. I mean, for instance, Christina, played by Vera Clouzot, Henri-Georges' wife, she's very very unsure. She comes off as very unsure and not particularly confident. She's very hesitant to go through with this plot to kill her husband, even though her husband has been pretty much nothing but abusive to her. But she comes off mostly as very meek and very hesitant. Although there are some moments where she does get a push, and she does feel a little bit more confident and more sure and such. And she also has a very frail heart. Like she's very easily, like if something is really, really stressful, really, really, really awful, and she senses this really affects her heart. And there is a kind of an unintentionally true to life scenario. 5 years after this film, she did actually die of a heart attack, and she did actually have heart problems. So, and this affected Henri-Georges deeply in his career. So, and then there's even Michel has a kind of a little bit. I mean, he's clearly an asshole. Like it's very obvious. Like when he shows up, like he just comes off as this mega jerk, and you think like, why would anybody want to like? Okay, why is he like? How did he end up being married, and how did he end up having a mistress? It's one of those baffling mysteries of life. How could some people? I swear. But there are a few moments where you do get the sense that it's not entirely his fault, or that that past experiences has dictated his actions. But nonetheless, I think in the end, you just think like, man, this guy's an asshole. That was just like a reoccurring phrase. Like every time I look at it, it's like, man, he's a total asshole. But yes, Les Diaboliques, I definitely recommend it, especially if you enjoy both the thriller genre and the horror genre. It's mostly viewed as a horror film, but I would say that it's both. It's a horror thriller, and also as an example of a well-crafted film where the plot is consistent. There's not a whole lot of plot holes or anything like that. So if you want to see an example of a well-made film with a very consistent plot, some mild characterization, some interesting moments, and it's also not devoted to the story. It also looks at this school, and I think it anticipates. I think Vigo was before him, so you already had things like Zero de Conduite already. Yeah, Zero de Conduite was definitely already made at that point. But this was also before, say, The 400 Blows and If. So you get a little bit of that, life amongst schoolboys thing. So there's a little bit of that as well. So it's definitely a very enjoyable film. And also it has some repeat value as well. Even when you know how the whole thing plays out, it's really good to look. It's also great to look back at the film a second pass and to pick out more details and even pick up on some foreshadowing. So this is the worst spoiler you're ever going to get. There are some foreshadowing moments, but again, check it out. So anyways, so that's Les Diaboliques, and until next time, take care.